The Galactic Council chamber vibrated with tension. Around the central table, species from across the galaxy debated in rising frustration. The war on Nerith Prime had turned. What began as a containment mission had devolved into a massacre. Entire legions of advanced forces had fallen to an enemy that adapted faster than any simulation predicted. Shields failed. Drone swarms were hacked mid-flight. Every plan dissolved under the weight of cold, calculated annihilation. General Zeltar of the Dravari slammed a metallic fist into the console. "We need reinforcements, not another useless debate." Counselor Vren of the Volcari hissed. "From where? Half our fleets are already committed, and the other half are dying." In the silence that followed, a single human representative, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, forgotten by most, stood slowly. "Earth has a solution." Dozens of eyes turned, some confused, others skeptical. One chuckled. "Earth?" Zeltar said, voice dripping disdain. "The Terrans have barely contributed since the Syndicate Wars. You expect us to believe your people, your retired people, can shift a losing war. We have veterans, real ones, battle-hardened soldiers who've fought enemies worse than this." Laughter erupted. The Zorith ambassador leaned forward. "You want us to deploy your elderly? Should we supply them with walking frames and hope the enemy dies laughing? They've survived horrors none of you can pronounce. You've built armies on protocol and technology. We built ours on pain and memory." The room quieted. The Terran's voice didn't rise, but struck harder than any outburst. A few of the younger delegates looked at him with renewed curiosity. "Even if we entertained this," Counselor Vren sneered, "you'd need approval from every quadrant. You'd need justification to put unfit bodies in an active war zone." "We're not asking for permission," the human replied. "We're informing you. The order's already gone out. They're coming." Someone snorted. "And what exactly do you expect them to do? These are not enhanced soldiers. They lack nanosymbiotes, AI-linked reflexes, or modern neurocommand protocols. They don't need enhancements. They remember how to win. Against this enemy, you've seen the footage. Our best strategies have failed. They consume data and turn it into death. We send our brightest, and they come back in boxes. That's why we're not sending the brightest. We're sending the darkest. Men and women who've already died inside 100 times, but kept standing. People with no more illusions to lose." There was silence. No one knew how to respond to that. Minutes later, the motion passed, not out of faith, but despair. The deployment order was filed under Emergency Reinforcement Act 7 Delta. No ceremonial speeches. No public announcement. The files marked Terran Reserve units, lit up across systems, and activated networks long dormant. Deep beneath the Martian bunkers, Antarctica's sealed vaults, and off-the-books lunar stations, calls were received. Coordinates relayed. Silence answered. Back in the council chamber, some still muttered jokes. "Let's hope they remember how to fire a gun without pulling a hip." Only the human didn't smile. He tapped the edge of the holodeable once, and it zoomed to show the battlefield. "You won't be laughing when they get there." Across the galaxy, alien commanders reviewed the notice. Terran Veteran Battalion ETA, 28 hours. Commander Zruk of the Kralek Legion blinked at the message, confused. This has to be symbolic. Surely they don't expect these elders to fight. Orders say they'll be given their own command sectors. Without advisors, without anything. The Council's intelligence brief later described the Terran battalion roster. It read like a horror anthology. Combat records from battles long scrubbed from history. Names associated with urban legends among mercenaries. Most files had security clearances that even the Council couldn't decrypt. Someone remarked that they'd thought all those men were dead. Another replied, "That's the point." Doubt lingered. The war data was irrefutable. Every strategy had failed. Perhaps this was a last-ditch attempt to turn myth into morale. The more optimistic among them said it might rally local species to keep fighting. But the old humans weren't coming for morale. They weren't coming to inspire anyone. They were coming to finish a job, and they didn't care who doubted them. The dropships arrived without flourish. No banners, no anthems, no fanfare. They descended like relics from a forgotten age, unpolished, scarred, and built for utility, not beauty. Their hulls bore impact, dents, heat scarring, and unit insignias older than most living Council soldiers. The Council's recon satellites noted the Terran emblem, faded but unmistakable, branded on the lead transport like a promise. When the hatches opened, the planet's dust met boots that had crossed more dead worlds than anyone could count. The soldiers who stepped out were not what the observers expected. No shimmering armor, no neural interface gear. Instead, dented exoframes, field-patched environmental suits, and weapons customized far beyond regulation. Every piece of gear looked old. Every piece of gear looked earned. They moved with deliberate pace. Not slow, deliberate. Calculated steps. No wasted movement. Their helmets were off, exposing faces etched with hard lines, cybernetic grafts, old burn scars, and quiet fury. Some had white beards. Some had none. All had eyes that didn't scan for orders. They scanned for threats. Alien officers assembled to greet them stood awkwardly, unsure whether to offer salute or curiosity. One Volcari tactician leaned to his aide. They're not even enhanced. This is suicide. The lead Terran, a man with half a skull replaced by combat plating, walked straight past the alien officers without acknowledging them. A second followed, adjusting a rusted rifle with mechanical fingers. Another spat in the dirt and muttered, "Still smells better than Daltrus Ridge." The aide asked quietly, "What's Daltrus Ridge?" The Volcari didn't answer. He was watching the humans now. Really watching. How they moved. How they didn't talk unless necessary. One of them dropped to a knee and scooped soil into a sample vial. No scanners. Just instinct. The others began checking elevation lines, angles, sight lines. Council staff offered them briefings. The humans declined. Offered drone scouts. Declined. Command links. Declined. They brought their own systems. Disconnected. Untraceable. One alien tried again. "We can assign support units to a company." "No," one human said flatly. "We have advanced recon drones. We don't need recon. You haven't seen this enemy. We've seen worse." The response carried no bravado. It wasn't arrogance. It was experience. The kind that made bravado irrelevant. Some aliens were offended. Others were unsettled. These weren't war-hardened warriors in the way the Council defined them. These were war-worn, war-haunted. Their silence was heavier than shouts. A younger alien lieutenant approached one of them, a female soldier missing both legs, replaced with heavy hydraulic limbs. Her armor bore the emblem of the Titan campaign, a symbol last recorded over a century ago. "Ma'am, I just want to say, I studied your records at the Academy. I didn't know anyone from Titan was still standing," she finished. "Yeah. Can I ask, what do you expect to find out there?" She looked toward the horizon. "Ghosts. But don't worry. We brought worse than ghosts." They were shown to staging zones. Refused beds. Slept in staggered shifts like they always had. When night came, they patrolled on foot without drones. When questioned, they answered with silence. Or laughter. Dry, quiet, hard. A council officer asked if they needed morale packages. One vet looked up and replied, "Morale's for people who haven't already decided they're not dying today." Command tried assigning battle plans. The humans shredded them, replaced with hand-drawn maps. Paper, pencil, symbols. The council didn't even recognize half the terminology. Ratlands, grim zones, burn lanes. It wasn't strategy, it was legacy. Sensors picked up odd radio bursts. Council assumed interference, until one tech realized the frequency matched ancient Terran war code. Pre-uplink era. When decrypted, the messages weren't commands. They were acknowledgments. 2 words repeated across units. Still breathing. Council observers noted behavior abnormalities. Veterans spoke in low tones, no wasted breath. Laughed at odds times. One wept quietly beside a rusted plasma launcher. Not from fear, from memory. Council command flagged psychological irregularities. Suggested intervention. The Terran handler replied with a single line. "These men and women weren't chosen because they're stable. They were chosen because they've already made peace with unstable." Later that evening, a Kralek strategist posted a report. The Terrans show no formal cohesion, no command chain protocols, and outdated tactics. Predict minimal battlefield effectiveness. 2 hours later, the Kralek Command Center received a private transmission from an old human colonel. No cohesion? That's because you're looking for discipline. We don't use discipline. We use certainty. What does that mean? It means if I go down, the person next to me doesn't need to be told what to do. They just do it. Alien analysts began reviewing Terran deployments. Realized something chilling. The sectors assigned to the veterans weren't defensive. They were deep infiltration zones. Areas no one else dared to enter. Command tried to issue a correction. Humans ignored it. The last report before engagement listed their designation as active. Under remarks, no further updates anticipated. Outcome expected. The battle began before the Council realized it. While High Command strategists waited for the enemy's opening move, the Terran veterans had already vanished from staging zones. No deployment notice. No movement pings. 1 second they were accounted for. The next, they were in the field, already fighting. Command scrambled to re-establish communications. No response. Council units monitoring nearby sectors started picking up faint, erratic energy signatures. Then came the silence, followed by something worse. Shifting heat maps showing large concentrations of enemy units going dark. Not retreating, not repositioning, disappearing. Alien observers pulled up battlefield feeds. What they saw defied expectation. A swarm of Varnock warforms pushed through Sector 9, overwhelming Council mechanized divisions. The Terran units held that sector now. Only that they didn't hold it, they dismantled it. One feed showed a small group of humans walking directly into an enemy advance, laying tripwired explosives with unshakable calm, then disappearing into the smoke. The swarm followed. Seconds later, the entire canyon lit up in a chain reaction, collapsing rock over steel. The smoke cleared, revealing no retreat, no regrouping, just the humans already moving to the next target. Another feed showed a vet dragging a plasma cannon older than most alien tech, firing in short, surgical bursts. Each shot dropped a drone mid-flight. Not spray fire, not saturation, precision, efficiency. The AI swarm adapted, flanked, only to find itself funneled into a kill box of interlocking fire laid down by 4 silent men positioned like ghosts. A council commander demanded to know how these units had learned enemy patterns so fast. The answer? They didn't. They didn't learn the enemy. They understood war. And war obeyed certain truths, no matter the species. The council's own troops hesitated when the terrain shifted. The humans didn't. When sensors failed, the humans relied on feel. When drones were hacked, the humans used flares. When comms dropped, they whistled or knocked on metal to relay directions. Alien forces tried to mimic them, failed. It wasn't just tactics, it was instinct forged through pain. One Kralek battalion moved to reinforce a veteran position. By the time they arrived, it was over. Hundreds of Varnock corpses littered the trench lines. A single human sat at the edge, sharpening a blade caked in alien tissue. The Kralek commander said, "You held this entire line?" The human didn't look up. It wasn't that hard. They rushed like they'd never fought someone who wanted to die more than they did. Council analytics couldn't explain the casualty gap. Veteran units reported near-zero losses while eliminating entire strike formations. Alien strategists double-checked, triple-checked. The math didn't compute. These humans weren't faster, weren't stronger. They were ruthless, methodical. Each death wasn't a victory, it was a statement. Behind enemy lines, Terran squads executed coordinated strikes without drones or AI. One group lit an entire Varnock supply cache on fire, with thermal charges coded by hand. Another used old trench mirror tactics to draw in enemy scouts, then collapsed tunnels over them using buried munitions and remote detonation pulses. Council tacticians finally saw it. This wasn't just combat. This was extermination. One field officer submitted a request to promote the veterans to strategic command level. Rejected. They didn't want command. They were the command. They made decisions without delay, without debate. When reinforcements asked for instructions, the response was, watch or move. No time to explain. Enemy leaders shifted strategy, tried deploying psychological warfare, mimic screams, visual hallucinations, pulse-based confusion. The veterans advanced anyway. One soldier walked through a disorient field with a hand over one eye and his rifle in the other. Seen worse on Draws 5, he said before putting 2 rounds into the emitter tower and watching it explode. A Varnock swarm adapted, used terrain, split formations, launched a multi-vector flank against the Terran left. It lasted 11 minutes. Then came a single coded burst over encrypted human frequencies. Sector cleared. One alien recon pilot flew a stealth drone over the human advance path. The footage captured 6 humans walking through open ground surrounded by corpses, enemy and otherwise. No panic, no haste, just practiced, relentless purpose. Every movement suggested they didn't expect backup. They didn't need it. Council forces tried again to coordinate joint operations. The veterans ignored them. When pressed, they answered, keep up or don't. We're not slowing down. By hour 20, command sectors previously marked red were shifting to blue. Enemy communications fractured. Patterns broke. What was once a cold, calculated enemy formation had become a fractured, retreating mass. Council leaders tried to understand the shift. AI models couldn't quantify it. It wasn't tech. It wasn't luck. It was will. The Terran veterans didn't fight for glory. They fought like men sent to die who had nothing left to lose, but had, somehow, survived anyway. Enemy leaders initiated fallback protocols. The veterans didn't let them. They chased, hunted, finished. In under a day, the front line bent. Then snapped, and when the dust settled, the only transmission from the Terran units came through an ancient comm channel used during the siege of Arcadia. For words, steady and flat, the battlefield was quiet, not peaceful, just emptied of resistance. Smoke coiled from the torn earth. Wreckage smoldered across the former front lines, twisted metal and scorched bone indistinguishable in the ash. Council recovery crews touched down cautiously, unsure of what they'd find. The enemy had been routed, but no official victory had been declared. There was no triumphant transmission, no celebratory flare. Just silence. Scouting drones moved in first. They found Terran veterans sitting among the ruins like statues. Some clean weapons. Others rested against debris. None looked surprised. None looked relieved. No cheers, no salutes, no smiles. Only breath. One veteran tapped his comm twice and resumed cleaning the same rifle he'd carried through 3 wars. Another carved a tally into the stock of a battered sidearm. The tally wasn't for kills. It was for battles survived. Council officers disembarked, still unsure how to address them. The enemy had been eradicated, the lines redrawn, the sector reclaimed. But the veterans hadn't waited for confirmation. They'd simply stopped moving when there was nothing left to kill. Commander Threx approached one of them, a hulking soldier with ocular implants and burn marks across his throat. "What do we owe this turnaround to?" he asked. The soldier shrugged. "We don't turn things around. We just stop them from falling apart long enough for the rest of you to catch up. Your casualty rate was minimal. We buried our dead fast and moved. No time for grief. You break when you stop. You led no strategy meetings. Accepted no coordination. Didn't need to." The commander looked around at the field. "We calculated a 70% chance of total loss. Your squad pushed into a zone our AI models deemed unsalvageable." The veteran gave him a hard look. "Your models never met a Terran with nothing left to lose." Word spread quickly. Reports poured in from across the sector. Every zone assigned to the veterans had flipped. Command couldn't explain it. The data showed impossible figures. Precision strikes with outdated equipment. Enemy command structures dismantled in under 30 minutes. Tactics that defied logic but worked. Analysts tried to piece together a pattern. There wasn't one, only results. Other council soldiers began seeking the veterans out. Not for praise, just to understand. A young tactician asked one of the older women how she kept her calm under pressure. She answered without looking up. Pressure is the absence of experience. We don't panic because we've already seen the worst possible outcome. We've lived it. Some of the younger troops started mimicking them. Simpler gear, fewer dependencies on drone oversight, more reliance on instinct. It didn't make them veterans, but it made them more dangerous. The council scheduled a formal ceremony to honor the humans. The veterans didn't show up. When asked why, one replied, "We don't need medals. We need ammunition." One alien commander tried offering thanks to the Terran colonel in charge. He extended his hand. The human didn't shake it. "We didn't do it for you," the colonel said. "We did it because we knew no one else could. But you saved thousands. We didn't save anyone. We just killed the ones trying to do the killing faster than you could beg for help." High Command circulated internal commendations. A few went public. Still, the veterans remained unresponsive. No requests for leave. No victory logs. Just silent departure from the field, moving toward the next target zone without waiting for new orders. One alien staffer asked an old Earth liaison why they stayed so distant. "They've buried too many comrades to celebrate what they survive," he said. "They're not here for glory. They're here because someone has to be." Eventually, a small plaque was placed at the edge of the battlefield, engraved in both Galactic Standard and Terran English. It didn't list names or units, just a single line. They came when no one else would. The Terrans didn't acknowledge it. Back at Council headquarters, military leaders reviewed the final data. Losses had dropped by 90% in veteran-controlled zones. Enemy movement was disorganized, their strategy shredded. The war's momentum had shifted overnight. Some still questioned how such results were possible. What made these aging humans scarred, outdated, and forgotten, capable of reshaping a war that had already been declared unwinnable? The answer, quietly spoken by those who had seen them fight, was always the same. They weren't afraid to die because they'd already lost everything they feared losing. And what remained was more dangerous than anything the enemy had ever faced. The Terran veterans moved on, their boots trailing dust through the next hell they'd been sent to fix. Behind them, silence followed, not from fear, but from the weight of understanding. They weren't warriors anymore. They were the reckoning.